Well, hello, X, Facebook, Twitch, and of course, LinkedIn and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you can check out this URL here. This is the Red Hat AI YouTube channel, and we've been doing a lot of growth there. A lot of good growth on Frank's World TV as well, but really tremendous growth on the Red Hat AI YouTube channel. I would also recommend you check out the Red Hat YouTube channel because there's going to be a lot of exciting announcements coming up over the next week or two. My name is Frank Lavinia. You can catch me at Frank Digs Data on most of the socials. And you can see me at the following URLs, franksworld.com, datadriven.tv, and impactquantum.com. So today, I'm going to talk about space, and specifically the use of artificial intelligence in and around Earth orbit. So how this came about was I was invited to speak at an event in DC about space commerce and things like that, which then led me down a research rabbit hole around this topic that 10-year-old me would be super excited about. And I have to say, I am very, very excited about what I'm about to share with this. And I think it really opens up a lot of potential. Potential for not just AI, but also space exploration and exploitation. And it's definitely an interesting topic of conversation. And let me know what you think in the comments below. So without further ado, let's talk about space. All right, so this is hey, what happened? There we go. All right, so we are talking about space, or where no AI has gone before. And this is really the benefits and risks of artificial intelligence in orbit. So first off, I'm Frank Lavinia, Principal AI Technical Marketing Manager at Red Hat, and we'll talk a little bit about that up ahead. And you can reach me at that email. But again, what a time to be alive, right? Distributed spacecraft autonomy, right? Not only are we going back to the moon, but apparently we're going to have swarms of bots and satellites assisting us, whether that's rovers, whether that's some kind of drone type devices in and around lunar bases. I mean, what a time to be alive. Also, Llama is already in orbit. They have their open source AI model. It's already on the International Space Station, and literally like the day before I gave this talk. So, I mean, this is very much cutting edge. I would also like to add, there's a lot of interesting work being done here in terms of financing and funding with space commerce and artificial intelligence, right? So again, you have to think AI in space. Are you kidding? I mean, if you see kind of the massive clusters of machines that are needed in some cases for running these AI models or training these AI models, you have to really wonder, right? There are significant computational requirements. There's obviously high energy usage. And anyone who's ever run Llama or a large language model on their laptop, you'll know that the latency and the real time, it's not exactly responsive. Now, with that in mind, I want you to go back in time with me. This right here that you're seeing is a 5 megabyte hard drive that was shipped by IBM in 1956. I am entirely certain that the machine you're watching me on has way more than 5 megs of memory. And in fact, probably the Chrome tab you're watching it in, assuming you're watching Chrome, or the browser tab you're watching it in, is taking up at least 5 megs of RAM. So obviously, these things change. By the time I got to college, 5 megabytes was approximately When I was in high school, it was about 5 of these. By the time I got to college, it was about 2.5 or 3.5. I'm going to round up and say it was 4. So it's really, I think, important to keep that in mind. So with that in mind, the Apollo program, I think, is really the watershed moment for space-ready tech. And what I mean by that is, you had to get things like the Apollo guidance computer into a small space. You had to be very conscious of the weight because every kilogram that goes into orbit has a certain dollar amount to it. And obviously, little things like life support, et cetera, and actual people, they also take up weight too. So you really had to be very conscious of that. Now, I also want to call your attention to this little number here, right? So 64K of memory and 70 pounds. Now, I will, for demonstration and how this innovation has really improved, I will go here and I'll point out that this here has 64K of RAM, of memory, and does not weigh 70 pounds. I would say at most, it's 5 pounds, right? And this is a product of the 1980s. So 64K alone, the web page you're watching this on, the HTML alone is probably 64K. So, these things are not fixed targets. And really what it is that the Apollo guidance computer was an essential thing, essential piece of kit that enabled real-time flight control. And it was the miniaturization that drove innovation. And here's a little bit of foreshadowing in terms of VLLM. VLLM lets you run, among other things, compress large language models so they take up less of a memory footprint. They reduce their through a number of tactics and techniques. There's compression, and I think that really is the next wave of innovation we're going to see in artificial intelligence. Obviously in space tech, you see kind of the miniaturization of hardware to compressing intelligence, right? So there's a growing demand for autonomous decision making. There are space missions that are scaling beyond simple human control. And this is not news. Any science fiction movie, with the possible exception of Dune or TV series, has the idea that we have artificial intelligence with us, whether it's straight up androids in the form of, Lieutenant Commander Data from Star Trek, to the ship's computer, where the intelligence is built into the system. And when that was initially released in the 60s, that was science fiction. However, I have one of these devices right here that I can interact with voice. And I recently wrote an article about how I interact with AI via voice all the time while I'm driving. So it's definitely what was science fiction now is now just straight up an engineering problem. And having the AI on board, the decisions on board, means smarter, faster, and leaner operations. But space is not a very friendly environment. To quote Khan, it is very cold in space. And I see space and near Earth orbit as kind of the ultimate edge environment. You have to get real-time responses in latency-constrained environments, which is a fancy way of saying that the speed of light being what it is, and the distances that we're dealing with, maybe 1 or 2 seconds of latency in terms of sending the signal up and sending the signal down and then back up. That type of real-time communication that we're doing now is really an issue. Now, I'm about 30 seconds behind, so to speak. So you're watching me. I've already said it 30 seconds ago. So LinkedIn Live and all these live streaming platforms are about anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds behind. So hello, future people. But if I'm traveling at 18,000 miles per hour, or however many kilometers per hour that is, that seconds count, milliseconds count. So how do we do that? Also, how do you work when you're disconnected from Earth? You may not be able to reach the ground station through weather, or you're on the other side of the planet, or there's some kind of comms breakdown. How do you deal with that? And finally, you can really drive some efficiency at the edge through the use of AI. Well, and it really boils down to three benefits. One, faster decision making, right? There's no latency to speak of. So you have onboard detection of threats or anomalies. You reduce the need for constant babysitting from the ground. And you can also get time critical responses. Again, having the decisions to make action or avoid debris, orbital debris, which is increasingly a problem. If I can make that decision in milliseconds versus send a signal down to the ground, wait for a human operator or Earth-based AI system to make a decision, and then send the answer back up, a couple of seconds could have gone by, and my very expensive orbital satellite may be smashed to a million pieces. So little things like that. Second benefit, which I think kind of leads in from that third point there, is AI enables self-planning and adaptive behavior, right? So it's basically operational autonomy is what I'm talking about here, right? One of the things you're seeing both on the ground in terms of drone fireworks shows and whatnot is this notion of swarm intelligence, right? So you have this idea that you can have an autonomous satellite swarm of doing work together. You see this with drones on Earth, and I can easily imagine that being kind of the same things here. That means that constellations of satellites can all coordinate together to provide an optimal signal if you're communicating with Earth or doing some other kind of task. And three, which is not immediately obvious for people who are not aware of the severe bandwidth limitations that you have with space-based systems. Whenever we see things in TV or science fiction, there's very little issues with bandwidth. In and out of orbit, across space, vast distances of space, there's very little issues there. But apparently, it is the downlink, and that is the speed is not what you would expect it to be. And what AI can do is filter and prioritize data that gets sent down. So you can get less data being sent is going to have less latency and less bandwidth requirements, which then makes it easier and simpler to operate. An example would be the FISAT, which I believe was part of the European Space Agency. They did something with where their goal of that satellite was to get pictures of the ground. So when it detected that there were clouds covering what it was supposed to be looking at, it just didn't send it, right? Had cloud detection. Now, this leads me to my next point. Hey, what could go wrong? Well, AI has a history, both in fiction and in reality, of making decisions that are a bit unpredictable or coming up with ideas that don't really make a lot of sense. This means that the black box behavior mechanism is very causes issue here on Earth. It'll definitely cause issues in orbit. Adversarial attacks and cybersecurity vulnerabilities. It's one thing if you can convince a car dealership bot to sell you a Chevy Tahoe for $1. It's quite another if you convince a satellite in orbit to shut down or do something horrible. Also, space is not very an inviting place, right? You have compute weight restrictions in terms of getting things in orbit. There's radiation that is even in near Earth orbit. There's power limits, and heat dissipation is also a very big challenge because you're in a vacuum. So all of these things really kind of make it worth your while to be very efficient, right? You also need to have space hardened, radiation hardened chips. that are ready for that environment, which is going to cost more. Excuse me. They're not going to be up to the same speed as, say, your average NVIDIA 5090. So you're really going to have to think about that. Plus, again, I mentioned already the difficulties of venting and radiating heat out in a vacuum. That is an actual problem. Also, power management, because with power comes heat, and with heat you have to dissipate it, otherwise the thing will boil. So a lot of these things here have to be thought about it. So how do you protect these AI-enabled assets? Again, this is a problem on Earth. It's an even bigger problem in orbit. So AI opens up some new attack surfaces. I think we're all kind of seen that in terrestrial-based systems. We need a better idea of how to defend against that. And autonomous decisions must be auditable, which is a fancy way of saying we need to figure out how the AI came to that conclusion. This is essentially explainable AI, and it is causing problems on Earth. And there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done with that. So how do you build trustworthy AI in space? Well, one, you simulate the you-know-what out of it. You create simulations with digital twins, and you test it in all sorts of scenarios, both likely and unlikely. And that was already been done with the Apollo program and the Space Shuttle program. There was always a model on the ground where if they had a problem, they were able to, the engineers were able to kind of work out solutions on the ground. With that, I would also add that you need to have human fallback and override for humans. If you've seen the movie 2001, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If the device decides not to open up the pod bays, then you need a way to open up the pod bay doors. You need to be able to do that. And standardize and regulate AI behaviors. Not so much regulation in that sense, but governance around it. It's up to practitioners in this space to lead responsibly. But I'm optimistic, despite the challenges. Apollo program miniaturized computing for flight. This smartphone that I have in my hands, which has 128 gigs of memory, is a direct descendant and consequence of the manned space program. Although now we have to miniaturize intelligence for autonomy, and we have to have trust from the silicon level to the software level. So just like the Apollo guidance computer transformed guidance systems and how we think about computing in general, I think that we need to think that through here. And we're sending AI where no AI has been before. Let's make sure it thrives out there. All right, so that is the end of my slideshow part. Let's see if I have any comments. Yes, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And with that in mind, I'm going to end the stream. Although, hold on. There is something I wanted to show folks because it's really good stuff. So Humble Bundle, I'm a big fan of Humble Bundle. They don't pay me. They don't pay me for this. They don't do anything for me, I guess. That sounds pretty terrible. But let me share my screen. I am sharing this Chrome tab. All right, so what you have here is a number of solutions here. Not solutions. So basically, most of it is games, right? So if you like video games, and really who doesn't, they have a lot of deals for that. But they also have books and software. So for instance, if you really want to learn, actually, here's one. AI Trust and Security, very, very relevant to the topic we discussed. For $25, you will get access to all of these books, and a portion of the purchase goes to charity. in this case, the Malala Fund. You can click more and read about that. For $18, you can only get 5 books. Again, still a really good deal in terms of what you do, and you're helping a good cause. They also have software from time to time. Let's see, electronics bundle, IoT robotics. What is this? It's a course. Oh, it's a course. They list courseware as part of software. So there's audio software, map making bundle, AI stuff, CAD software, um, video game type assets, that sort of thing. So if you're whether you're writing video games or you want to learn how to do Arduino stuff or um, AI, cybersecurity, automation, I actually picked this one up the other day. Vibe coding type stuff, and there are a few other interesting things too, like so how to build income streams with software as a service. I mean, for 25 bucks, what do how can you beat that? A lot of data engineering stuff, a lot of good stuff in that bundle. So definitely check it out. You can go to humblebundle.com. But in the meantime, go check out this. Go scan that QR code. You can subscribe. And let's see what else I got. What other goodies am I supposed to promote? No, that's pretty much it. There's my book I co-wrote with Candace, who is the co-host on Impact Quantum. Which, by the way, Impact Quantum is the highest rated podcast. Let's see if I can go to FeedSpot. FeedSpot. Nope, that's not it. Let's see. Top Quantum Podcast. There we go. Resume my browsing. There you go. Right there. That's me. So I'm very excited about that. So definitely check it out. Again, I'll throw up the URLs. There you go. Catch me in all those places. And I wish you a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you later. In the meantime, you've been watching Frank's World TV, and have a great weekend.